What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Red Chill, your one-stop shop for everything movies, TV, and everything in between. I'm your host, Root. With me, my co-host, the Ben Affleck to my Matt Damon, aka Shabzy. What's good, my man?
What's up?
What's up? Welcome. This is our first episode of our official news show where we will react and talk about what's been happening in entertainment media and pop culture. We are still workshopping the name. For now, we're going with Root Shabz react to the news. Maybe we go with Pop Pod
Yes.
or
Our news pod.
News Pod. Enter the pod. We'll think about it. But yes,
Okay.
so we will just discuss and see what's been going on lately in entertainment news. So why don't we start and get into it and give this a shot? But the first thing I got
Let's
for
do
you,
it.
Shabs, is
got?
basically a few years ago, Martin Scorsese was saying that Marvel movies were theme parks and was
Right.
pretty critical of them in a way. So recently, there's a bunch of people in Hollywood that were being asked about Marvel, and they gave their reactions. And some of them were James Cameron was criticizing the Marvel and DC characters, actually saying that they all act like they're in college, and saying that
Oh.
they're very juvenile in that sense. Meanwhile,
Mhm.
Christian Bale was also kind of shitting on green screen acting after the last Thor movie, saying that it's very lifeless and it was like destroying him. He does not want to do that again, basically. Meantime, 2 days ago, they spoke to Quentin Tarantino and they asked him if he would ever think about directing a Marvel movie. And his response was actually that he thinks that Marvel movies are for hired guns and he is not really looking for a job. He mentioned that he thought about doing Star Trek a few years ago, but mentioned that that was because he saw the movie in theaters and thought that was really good cinema. But
Mhm.
at the same time, he also mentioned that he's not really trying to do those type of movies. He's more into Close Encounters of the Third Kind and doesn't
Mhm.
think Marvel would ever want to do a movie that in the way that he would want to do it. But yeah,
Yeah.
so Shabs, what do you think? What's your take on Marvel and DC movies?
I think I think they're onto something. I mean, given the credibility of all these guys, they're all fully legit filmmakers, and they're used to making like actual real movies with characters. And but here's my thing though, it's a little weird to have like a general sweep over all Marvel and all DC movies because there are, I mean, I would agree with the majority of them, where a lot of them do feel formulaic. They seem like they're like manufactured in from a brand rather than like personal like a personal vision of a filmmaker. But then we also have seen that with a couple of movies, with the Guardian Galaxy, the Spider-Man trilogy. They're all like they're all really great. They all have a lot of depth, and DC has movies. I mean, what DC movies are they referring to? Just the DCEU, just the Zack Snyder stuff, or I mean, Joker came out, which was really, which was liked by a lot of people, and I don't know. Quentin Tarantino has a point because he makes really adult, gritty movies, and he knows what happened to guys like Edgar Wright and other people who I think just wanted to do something of their own, and then they were like replaced because the studios wanted to have their own sort of input in it and wanted them to do things like listen to their notes a lot. But I don't know, man. Christian Bale may have a point because he did all the Dark Knight movies, where Christopher Nolan is known to shoot in like real locations, so he may have a point there. But I don't know how else you would. I guess you could do like a mixture of real locations and green screen. Maybe that's what he's referring to. But I don't know. It's a lot to digest, to be honest. But for the most part, I think they're all correct.
Well, I'll ask you this. Do you think superhero movies are cinema? Because I feel like that is, since Martin Scorsese came out and said that, that has been the question, because he was
Right.
basically saying that they're not.
Hmm. Well, okay. So first of all, I think the whole idea of what is cinema has changed now, because before you used to go watch the movies, the real movies in the cinema. Now it's sort of become the opposite, where you just go watch like visual spectacles in the cinema. But if you want to watch like a real movie by like Martin Scorsese or Quentin Tarantino, I wouldn't want to watch that on in the theater. I would want to watch that on like a big TV in my own house where I can like fully appreciate it and enjoy it. And with I'm not there with like people just eating popcorn and there just to be entertained. I think there's a huge difference between the two. And yeah, I mean, I think he's right from a certain standpoint, but again, we would have to then start talking about what are the definitions of cinema and how it's changed over. You want to talk something about 50s and musicals?
I think the fact that you call it real movies says a lot.
Yeah.
And also, I think that
Yeah.
these people specifically, if you're talking about James Cameron, Martin Scorsese,
Mm.
Martin Scorsese, I feel like with the last movie he did, the Irishman, he
Irishman.
like like specifically he went for digital just because he just wanted to do something so long, and he's
Mm.
kind of joking about it. He's kind of getting he's okay with the format in some ways, but I know that James Cameron and Quentin Tarantino for sure would hate to hear anybody say, "I want to see this on a TV." They make movies for the big screen. But my argument
Mm.
here is more about, I would say, cinema doesn't have to just be what they're doing or what Marvel is doing. I see Marvel movies like I see like action movies in the 90s, which we
Right.
don't get those type of movies anymore. Or musicals in the 50s, what you were referring to. Um, that's something like Quentin Tarantino was saying in the interview, that basically he was waiting for the fad to die. He thought that in
Mm.
2019 it was like the pinnacle for superhero movies, and he expected it to end after that, but it kind of didn't.
Mm.
So he's still kind of waiting for that. Where I don't know if it's exactly like that. It's like it's like comparing rap to disco, where like disco
Mm.
was a fad in the like 70s, early 80s, and slowly died out. Rap started in the 80s, and people thought it was a fad, but it just kept evolving, and it's still here,
Right.
and it sounds different. It is, but it's still straight up like it's hip hop if you think about it. And I think
Right.
Marvel at the moment, or not even just Marvel, I feel DC. The thing is, DC, Fox, Sony, they're a little bit more hit or miss. So that's why
Mm.
I would say that like Marvel specifically, I think will be here a lot longer because it's been evolving. And I think because
Mm.
Marvel is evolving, the other ones can still stay around because it keeps the interest so high. But yeah, my
Right.
argument for it would just be that it's yeah, I know these guys specifically, it was Martin Scorsese who called it not cinema, but even calling like these characters juvenile or acting like they're in college. I mean, like you were saying, it depends on the movie. Where people were actually pretty critical of Joker, if you talk to people now, where I loved it,
Right.
and at the beginning when it came out, I thought everybody loved it too. It sounded like it, but now when people look back at it, it's actually a bit mixed how people feel about that movie. But at the same time, I still think that was not a juvenile character. Like that was not
Yeah.
like, and same way I feel like we get that in different forms in like all these properties. Like maybe in Marvel, they like you said, it's become a little formulaic, but I would say at the same time, like this whole phase that we've been in since after 2019, 2020, it's been them being more experimental and like give them some time. I
Right.
think they themselves realized it, that they need to do something else. And that's why we had the last Doctor Strange movie done by Sam Raimi.
Mm.
And
Right.
we had like Shang-Chi just be like a straight up kung fu movie. We had Chloe
Mm.
Zhang do her Eternals movie. Like they're like, they understand that like they're still a property. People expect something. They
Right.
like now you go into a Marvel movie with expectations where people are like, oh, you know what, it didn't move the universe further, and then that's why they don't like a movie. And so they need to be careful with that. So yeah, I can see why they take their time. But yeah, I would just say overall, I don't think I fully agree. I think Quentin, like you said, had a point. I would still love for
Well,
them, like few
I
years
would
down the line, have him like write a script. Maybe don't direct it, but like write a
right.
script for a Wolverine or a Deadpool. Find like the character that you have a story for, and I think Marvel, like they do allow it for different genres to be done with these characters.
I mean, again, like it's different for, like you said, Quentin Tarantino and Martin Scorsese. I think are should be a little separated from James Cameron, because if you think about all the movies James Cameron made, they're all amazing, but they're not like great deep movies. I mean, if you think of Titanic and Avatar, they're the most uh, one-dimensional characters, the most stereotypical, especially Titanic, which is like the most beloved movie of all time, and for good reasons. But that's because of the filmmaking aspect of it. When it comes to the actual characters, they're the most simplistic, and Avatar actually has juvenile characters when it comes to the army general and the protagonist, and oh my god, these people are like this, and these people are the evil ones, and they just want to take over and they don't care. That's juvenile. That's how like someone who's in college would think the world exists as, where these are the good people and these are the bad people and these are the suppressed people and these are the people who are evil and mean, and oh, there's the one good guy who's going to break free. And it's like that's what makes me a little like chuckle a little bit, where even like you look at like Aliens and Judgment Day, I guess, is the only one that has some depth to its characters. Terminator 1 doesn't have a lot of depth. It's only
Judgment
Judgment
Day is
Day.
my
Aliens has,
Judgment Day is my favorite James Cameron movie
I
for
think so,
sure.
yeah.
But
Same.
yeah.
So when he's got True Lies and like, dude, those
Oh
are
shit!
just like
Yeah,
when
right.
you
I
look
forgot
back at
about True
them.
Lies. That's
Well,
probably my
exactly.
second favorite.
But once you go back and think about these movies, there, if these same movies would exist today, like you said, they would be superhero movies where they
True.
would just be super summer blockbusters. Some would be hits, some would be miss, and uh, just like James Cameron made a bunch of great summer blockbuster action movies that were great because James Cameron is great. So you have to judge the Marvel movies based on who's made them. There's so many. There's like 40 movies, and there's a bunch that you mentioned. Werewolf, I said, Wolverine. Freaking Logan was amazing. That was so like so much more adult themes, and it had so much heart to it, so much emotion to it. It was well written. Spider-Man movies are great, even though they're like Spider-Man, but it's not like if you compare that to the Amazing Spider-Man, there's a huge difference. So it you can't put a blanket statement. I think what Martin Scorsese said had some weight to it because I do think of comic book movies as the big spectacle, right? Like I would want to go to a theater to watch that for sure. And that's what I think Martin Scorsese was referring to, that the film's biggest appeal shouldn't just be, oh, I just want to go see superheroes on a big screen fight and do superpowers, and then everything comes second.
So
That's what I think he meant with it's not cinema, and the fact that it's just like a theme park ride, which is exhilarating and a lot of adrenaline based rather than heart and emotion, which is how he likes to write his characters.
how I see it is just for what it was like to go to the theater, even in the 90s. Like the 90s is one of the greatest centuries for films and stuff. Like if you think about what it was like to go in and like watch something, even like The Matrix, but even like back then you would go and watch something like Men in Black, and like those movies would make you like feel things. Well, I guess Men in Black is a comic book movie. But
But
I mean, just in general, like they were amazing experiences that like you don't get that anymore with these Marvel movies, where it's like this. Like I get what they're talking about. It's a different experience. Like when Quentin Tarantino talks about going to watch Star Trek when the first one when it comes out, and then afterwards feeling like the entire cinema just experienced something. Um, like
but
it's
dude,
like it's different now, where like it still is an experience for the fans, but I get how it is for somebody who's not into this stuff, like who doesn't care about, like For them, like
Also,
CGI, for example, Quentin Tarantino hates to use CGI. For example,
right,
so like for them to see a movie where like 90% of it is CGI, for them it just starts looking like, oh, and it's shot on digital. It just makes it less and less of what they're used to. For them, they're thinking old Hollywood or old movies are dying because of
right.
this. But
But
yeah,
dude, a lot of that has to do so much with like you can't. This is I hate when people do these things about just comparing things from previous eras to now, because so much of that is the experience of you have to look at the time as it was in that moment. Like
yeah,
a lot of these people are from like the 40s and the 50s, dude. Like there was such little content that anything that came out, it was like this huge experience. Like you said, watching Star Trek, I mean, you go back and watch the first Superman, the headlines were, "You won't believe a man can fly." Imagine you can't use that headline anymore, and that's not the fault of the era we are in today. That there's so much has been done, and the availability of being able to watch movies on your laptops and all these kind of things. The reason you talk of the 90s as like this great experience stuff, it's because it was new experiences for you as a kid growing up, and there wasn't a lot, like you had to wait 3 years for a sequel because that's just how long something took. Today something can be brought to you within a year, and even now things take time if you really put the time into it. But the whole point is like it depends on a lot of times it's just like when something comes out, what exists at that moment. I mean, Star Wars is just like a copy paste of a bunch of different things that already existed, but Star Wars as a thing never existed. That's why it became so great. But now it's like you try to write a story like Star Wars, you can't write something that simple because people will be like, "Oh my god, it's too simple." And there weren't like podcasters and reviewers, like millions of them just shitting on movies all the time, and billions of dollars being invested into it. So there's so much stuff that goes into comparing that to this. If you I think it's always fair to just like try and compare movies to movies in terms of what a good movie is rather than the experience people get from it.
yeah. I agree. And since you bring up Superman, I feel like that's a natural transition into our next story. Let us talk about our new Superman, who just recently is in the news because of The Witcher. But we never got to talk about the other big news that was maybe 2 weeks ago for big news for our resident Superman lover over here, number one Henry Cavill fan. Cavill? I'm going to go with Cavill. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Sorry, I was
so
just I was just getting some goodies for this news topic.
Henry Cavill is back in the DCEU, officially confirmed by himself, saying he will be the next Superman and he will be joyous next time we see him. And he'll be the happy Superman that we always wanted him to be. So, Shabs, as our resident Superman aficionado expert, what do you think? What do you think of these news? I know that you were like over with the DCEU after they were trying to get rid of him.
Yes.
So how do you feel now that
I
he's
don't think they
back?
were trying I don't think they were trying to get rid of him. Okay, how dare you say that about him? I think he wanted to leave on his own terms because he wasn't happy with the direction they were going in. All right, maybe get your facts straight, Mr. Root.
Sounds like a theme.
Yeah. But yo, man, I am so happy about that. I freaking love. I don't know, like I know a lot of people just hated everything about Superman and Man of Steel and all the Zack Snyder stuff, and people. I feel like all that hate also got like just into Henry Cavill as well, just because he was Superman. And I don't think people know like how like amazing that guy is, dude. Like if you've seen interviews of him, he's like he is actual Superman. He's so charming, and he's like down to earth, and he's always like he's super witty. And yeah, I love the guy so much. He was so for me, it was always like as growing up, everybody loves Superman and Batman, right? And but as growing up, I never got to see a Superman movie that I could watch because I was like, by the time I was like old enough to watch movies. Like the older Superman was a little too campy for me, and I was like, that's too like. And then I had to wait for like 20 years, not 20 years, but like a lot of time. And then Brandon Routh showed up, and I was like, no, that's not Superman. What the hell? And when I finally, all I wanted was at some point, after all the, like, there was like 40 Batman movies that came in the middle of it. And I was like, how is it possible that we still haven't gotten like a Superman movie? He's the greatest superhero, and we still don't have a Superman movie. And yeah, when it happened, I was just like so happy. I love Man of Steel. I know it has problems. I'm fine with that, but overall, everything about it is great. I always wish that like how you mentioned, he's gonna be joyous and stuff like that. I always wanted a Man of Steel 2 somewhere in between Man of Steel and Batman v Superman, where we could just watch him be, because Man of Steel is all about him going from the alien to becoming Superman. Like he learns from his mistakes, and all that. He grows into the superhero. And then I was like, okay, we got, like, I know people are gonna hate a lot of it, but I felt like it was a good, it needed to be told like that story for the new modern era, and it had a lot of themes from the original, the John Byrne Superman reboot and the Secret Origins reboot. And so I was like, okay, great. Now let's have a Man of Steel 2 where he's just, getting it, just trying to have problems with Lex Luthor, and maybe we have Metallo as the villain before we get into like, oh no, Doomsday showed up. And I was like, no, that's too soon, dude. Too soon, Zach. I was like, I understand that it's a continuation of Man of Steel. Like from a story standpoint, it makes sense. But I was just like, it does, okay? Don't you make that face at me. Okay, it totally made sense. Okay, BVS was all about the consequences of Man of Steel, and everything, all those other superheroes that were brought into it was because of that. So from a story standpoint, it made complete sense for it to continue in that direction.
But
you got something to say? Wanted to say it.
Did it have to be Doomsday? Because Doomsday has such a fucking cool story, and they made it so fucking lame by making Zod.
Okay, so here's the thing. Doomsday does have cool stories, but a lot of the Doomsday stories came much later. I think Zack Snyder was just trying to adapt the Death and Return of Superman trilogy, in which Doomsday is just like a monster that just comes barreling through Earth. That's it. He's just walking through the entire planet, just like barreling through forests and trees, and Superman has to go fight him. Obviously, his character is like embellished upon more in like later comic books, but just from a standpoint of like, even from like, if you just look at Man of Steel, BVS, and Justice League, that's the Superman trilogy of the Death and Return of Superman, where you introduced, and then the fall, and then now he's back. And he's the return, okay, in the black suit. All right, that's the OG with the long hair, okay, with the long hair like this. Got the that's the '90s Superman. That's the '90s Superman. That was gonna be the Nick Cage Superman,
if I remember correctly.
But yeah, so
didn't the Justice League, Josh Whedon's Justice League, end with him doing the whole thing? And like he did the race with the Flash, which was terrible. But how did it end in the Zack Snyder Justice League? Where was he at there?
Well, he just comes back like a regular Superman would. I mean,
like at the end of the movie, like what is he doing?
I think he was chilling with Lois. Remember he bought the bank. He got his Bruce Wayne got his mom's house back.
That's what.
So he's just chilling with with Martha, and
yeah, Lois. Right. I think they leave
back
it
at the
there.
farm,
and then back at the farm. Turns into evil Superman in the Flash Forward.
Yes. Yes.
But yeah, I guess that's a better ending. I was going to ask you, like, what would you rather have, him in Metropolis doing the classic, ripping open the shirt?
I wouldn't. No, because that should be the ending of like Man of Steel, not of freaking. I mean, I guess you can still end it like that, but
I
I don't
not
think
saying
Zack Snyder could end it properly. I think just because of the fact that that movie was unfinished, and then he sort of like got things together
well,
and
I'm not
finished
saying
it with
that
whatever.
that's like how should the movie end. I'm saying if now that he comes back, which ending
Okay.
should they go with? Him in Metropolis
Oh,
being the classic Superman, or him on the farm with Martha and Lewis?
I think he's just back. It's the same thing in the end. Like, I mean, he can be back at the farm, but now he's Superman.
Okay.
And he's got a bunch of suits, as we saw in his ship. So he can. So once he's chilling at the farm, he can go back to his red and blue suit.
All right.
We saw all these things, okay?
Why did he have a black suit when he came out of the water?
Because that's the Krypton suit.
Who put it on him?
He had it in the thing. Once again, okay. Since you mentioned that, why did he have it? Hold on. I got the receipts. Okay, I came prepared for this.
Did they bury him? No, wait. Okay, wait. He comes out in pants, right, and trousers and shirtless.
Yes.
Whereas also like how come
very
he was
handsome?
how come he was buried shirtless?
No.
Is that custom?
No, he had his full suit on when they
Well,
took him out, and
who took the suit off? And why?
no, his clothes and shirt just sort of blew up once he came back to the thing, and only his pants remained.
Yeah, it's so
I was
powerful.
very sad about that. I was
He's
very
so-
sad about that.
Will you said the pants remain? So he's so powerful.
imagine if he just has the shirt and no pants.
So yeah, exactly. He got lucky. He got so
That'd
lucky.
be-
There was the
that'd be
shirt, not the
hilarious.
pants. So like, but like,
It's
he's
the
so
Hulk
powerful.
situation.
He's so powerful. No suit can contain him. You gotta move it a little bit
Yes.
more to your right.
Oh, to my right.
No, well, the other side. Yeah, that way. And there you go.
Look at that. You see that?
DC Collectibles Man of Steel Superman
Yes.
variant. The black variant.
Look at that. Because I don't know if you remember in Man of Steel, when Zod is sort of mind controlling him and telling him all about how they plan to terraform, there's a scene of him in the black suit
Yeah.
on top of the skulls.
Oh, does it have the skulls?
Yes.
Oh, that's sick. He's standing on top of skulls.
There you go. Look at that.
Now I
So
want
that's the Man of Steel variant.
I want the Batman that's like drowning in the skulls.
Batman didn't drown in the skull. He drowned in the skulls.
Oh, was it him? Oh, yeah, right.
Yeah. He's standing on top of the skulls and then he's drowning into
Right.
it.
Yeah, my bad. Now I want give me Superman drowning.
This is a convention exclusive, apparently. I didn't buy it at the convention, but I bought it like after Man of Steel.
Nice.
Because once I've found out that Doomsday is going to be in BVS, I was like, oh my god, I gotta get all these because I know this is going to be the arc. Because I know Zack Snyder, he loves to stay close to the comics, but he just doesn't know how to fit things together, and he doesn't know how to write a story with a single purpose. Sorry. Sorry guys, I didn't know the rapper was I was just trying to keep it safe. Hold on 1 second. Why don't you keep talking? I'll just take 1 second and I'll put this on the side.
Yeah, like again for me, I like those movies. I really like the Zack Snyder Justice League. I also like the director's cut of BVS. Man of Steel, I thought I liked the beginning on Krypton, and then I think once the last 40 minutes start where they're punching, it's kind of stupid fun. But there's still, I rewatched it not too long ago before the Justice League. I rewatched all of them, and even then I was just like properly just like taking it in. I realized that there's a big chunk of like it's like the first crazy enough 30 minutes on Krypton. It's like so long. Like I was like I never knew it.
Right.
I thought it was like 10 minutes, but it's so freaking long. That's all great. And then there's a 40-minute chunk of mopey Superman and
He's
Louis
not
Lane.
mopey, dude. He's trying to
He's
find
so
his way
mopey.
in the world.
He's so mopey.
He's not mopey. He's
Bro,
just
then
like
he's walking down
regularly
the
just
street.
lost.
He's looking like, oh God, man, where's my dog? I lost him. Can anybody find him?
No, he's just like trying to find his way in the world, and he's
Dude,
an alien.
he's the type of guy you tell him a joke and he's just like, that's funny.
No, okay, he laughed. Okay, he was a very
Wait.
nice guy.
Who did he laugh with? There you go.
Well, in the beginning, they're just trying to show that he's lost. Okay, that's the
What?
point. If he's just laughing around, they'll be like, "What's wrong with this guy? He's lost and he's just laughing to himself. He's a
Not
weirdo."
I mean, yeah, not to himself, but like, maybe he walks by something funny and he's just like, ha, that's funny. And he trips a little bit rather than smirks. But, I don't know. I'm just saying it was very mopey. And then Lois Lane doing her thing where like she shouldn't be there. Why is she allowed to do this? She's just a fucking reporter. And she's like doing way too much of shit that she shouldn't
Well,
be doing.
that's her character. That's what Lois does. She's just a journalist, but she always gets herself into deep trouble because she's always trying to get the big risky story. That's normal, and that's why Superman. So that's the reason why Superman is always. You can always have the story of Superman has to go save her because Lois got herself into trouble.
Yeah, she didn't even get into trouble. She was just like, yo, like, how do you find a freaking spaceship? Like, how do you follow the alien to a spaceship and nobody else on this entire base is looking? I don't know. It just overall.
Oh yeah, I don't know how she ended up on that ice mountain by herself in
Right.
in the weather where only Superman could exist.
That's what I'm saying. Like, there was just like a bunch of stuff where like it's not that interesting, and even what's happening is kind of questionable. So then, like, once the Zod shows up on the TV, that's when you're like, oh, that's still like one of the sickest scenes. Like that, I'll never forget that. Like, I think that's one of the sickest scenes in like the entire trilogy, where like maybe Flash scenes
It's
in
like
Justice League could live up to that. But it's so dope. It's such a mood.
It's like a horror movie.
Yeah.
Where I was like, oh yeah, I remember Zack Snyder directed horror movies.
It reminded me. It's like the original when Ben Kingsley was like playing the Mandarin and stuff. Like it was so cool at
yes.
first. It's like not enough people play with that scary leader trope. That like I feel like it always, like, even with Man of Steel, they didn't do it long enough. Well, then they're like, okay, and then now it's just an alien invasion, and now it's just a punching of 2 people, 3 people, however many are in the scene.
Right.
But it's hilarious, especially now after all the stuff has come out about like, oh, they killed too many people, just watching back all the destruction. But yeah.
Well, they didn't.
Huh?
I mean, Superman didn't.
Oh, well, he was thrown into a building inadvertently.
There you go.
He punched
He was
Zod
thrown
into a
into a
building.
building.
He punched Zod into a building.
But
It's not
so,
like he
so that's
actively-
part of. But that's part of the movie, and why it's like such a big thing in BVS. Why people actually turn against him is because of these reasons. He's trying to like
mean-
understand his own power. Dude, he's never had a fight with actual aliens who were as powerful or even more powerful and a lot more trained than him.
Okay,
That's
but
what the thing is, and his emotions come into play. Like he has to learn how to,
first, you don't think that Zack Snyder did like changed it retroactively? Because I give you this: where is Clark Kent from? Where does he grow up?
Kansas.
All right. What
Kansas.
when you see his Kansas farm and everything, what does it look like around him? What does the landscape look like?
Like a farm.
Okay, and around the farm, like, does it look like, how many people are around there and giant buildings where he lives in Kansas?
Not many.
Okay, so now if Superman was a good guy, right? At some point, shouldn't he have been like, you know what? Let me grab this motherfucker and go to Kansas or somewhere where there's no people, because it seems like we're crashing into a lot of buildings here.
So that's the thing, dude. It's easy for us to say that while watching a movie. But for the guy who's in the middle of all this and who's been called out of the blue and is just getting ragdoll punched by these aliens into these things, he doesn't have, dude, he can't even think rationally, where he's just like, oh my God, I'm just trying to punch and get my, there are so many scenes if you go back and watch where he's just trying to fly away and like, Fiora and that other, I forgot the big dude's name. They just grab his cape and just bring him back and just keep fighting. And then obviously the big thing about when Zod's threatening his mother and he lets his emotion come into play, which brings in the theme into BVS about him loving Lois Lane too much. And she's like, I don't know if you can love me and still be Superman, because you're gonna get emotional and you don't and at that moment you won't be able to control your own strength, and people are gonna use that against you. And he learns from this. So that's why I felt like obviously like it was too much for BVS, but I think all these things could have been easily sort of handled in a Man of Steel 2, where Lex Luthor starts turning the public against him and all these kind of things, rather than trying to make it like Zack Snyder wanted to make it so goddamn grand that I think it was hard to actually deal. And then he wanted to include Batman in it, and then Doomsday in it, Wonder Woman, and then I want to be the one to do the trio, and I think that's what the issue was. Because in BVS, the first thing he does with Doomsday is grab him and he goes up into space. Literally the first thing.
Yeah, because
so that's him learning from his.
Yeah,
Zack Snyder learning. He understood. Zack Snyder learning. From
Zack Snyder learning from his mistakes. It's basically Superman was just too mopey. Had he had a little bit of like fun in between, he would have realized, like, you know what, maybe I should save these people. But so if you're such a big fan of Henry Cavill, have you been watching The Witcher?
Okay, no. So before that, let me just quickly wrap up Henry Cavill as Superman. About like I said, now that Justice League was done, my thing was like a lot of people wanted to drop out, but my love for the DCEU was mostly based on Henry Cavill as Superman. And I was like, I know that this actor can be a great Superman. And even though I've loved Superman in all these movies, I would like for there to be a real Superman movie directed by someone like James Gunn, like, you know, a guy like that, or someone, or like one guy who has a writer-director and he has his own vision to write a really good story for Superman. And I think Henry Cavill would be amazing. But then when Henry Cavill dropped out, my entire like enthusiasm for DCU was done. But now that he's back, and now DC is like giving chances to good people to make films, I think it's going to be good for him to be in a really, really good Superman, in a bright, colorful Superman movie. And I think he would do amazing. And I can't wait for it.
All right. Well, I'll just quickly mention what happened with The Witcher, but since you bring up James Gunn, I would say we should talk about that actually, because I actually haven't watched The Witcher. I just really like the games and I didn't get into the show as much. But I know he was pretty good. But basically, they're recasting him right now with Liam Hemsworth. And it's apparently, like you said, he's apparently not happy with the showrunners and the direction of the show. I think some of the writers came out saying, actually, they've never read the books or played the games and they don't really care about them. And
he's a true gamer.
Yeah, that and he loves the books too. Like the whole time when he spoke about The Witcher, he came in from the nerd point of like, he really
same
loved
with Superman.
Yeah. So it's interesting it's interesting that he's leaving for the same reasons again. You know.
Because that's why after watching his interviews, I was like, wow, this guy actually has the knowledge and is actually passionate about the character and knows so much about it. Like if you see there's a quick story about him, why it's so, it's easy to, because right now he's like this big Superman looking guy, right? So you don't think of him as a nerd. But there's a story of him that when he was 15, he was in boarding school and his nickname was Fat Cavill. Because he was really short and really fat. And then he just sort of grew tall and he became like this super handsome dude and while he was growing up, he was just like into plays and like, you know, into drama. So he's like an actor like that, where he was a true nerd, and he was like, he loves playing like World of Warcraft and stuff like that. And I don't know, and like a lot of PC games. So whenever he spoke about Superman, I was like, dude, just give him a chance to like be in a really good Superman movie. And I'm 100% sure, like, if he won't do it just for the paycheck. He's that type of a dude because he has so much actual integrity when it comes to these characters.
Sold his soul to the devil. That's what you're saying.
No, he almost he signed on, and he loved Zack Snyder's vision, so that's why I'm like he signed on for that. And when he realized
No,
like the
I'm
Justice
saying
League, and that's what
that's
Ben
how
Affleck said that.
that's how you turn from Fat Cavill to Henry Cavill. Sold to the
That's right.
devil. It's like one of those Ghost Rider scenes, when one
Mm,
day his bill is up, and then he has to work for the devil.
yeah, that's what happened. He had to work for
Wait,
Joss
did
Whedon.
you watch The Witcher? If you love Henry
No,
Cavill,
I've seen bits and pieces of it.
okay. Well,
Yeah.
yeah, I just think it's a crazy idea to just switch actors. I feel like that shows like the only reason I even was interested in that show was because of him. So I think that
Mm,
show is probably not going to do too well after that. But you mentioned James Gunn, another thing in the
mm.
news that happened right around the time that Henry Cavill came back to Superman. James Gunn is officially the head of DC. Also, it is not the DCEU anymore. It is officially
Oh,
the DCU. It's not the extended universe anymore.
oh,
They've officially, it's
wow.
Warner Brothers finally came out. Forever, DCEU is what the fans gave it because it didn't have a name.
Oh,
So they officially came out and it's like, this is what we're calling it, which is DCU.
mm.
But yeah, so after James Gunn's success with the Suicide Squad and Peacemaker, apparently they're like, hey, why don't you leave Marvel? You're done with your
Yes.
Guardians. Why don't you come over here and do your thing over here? And it sounds like he's officially going to be like the Kevin Feige head. It's not like they're hiring him to
Yeah.
make more movies, which he probably will do as well. He definitely wanted to do way more with Peacemaker and even other shows with
Mm.
characters from that. But I'm sure he'll do other things as well. But I think the idea is that he's the Kevin Feige type that will overlook the idea of what the DCU is supposed to be and
The
what these
vision.
movies, yeah, the vision for these movies for them to create a shared universe and hopefully, like basically what they were trying to do with Zack Snyder, but they didn't realize that like Zack Snyder can't share a universe.
How
Like,
dare you?
what do you mean? How do you do like the Zack Snyder Justice League and then watch Aquaman and you're like, that's in the same universe. It's just like it's the same character, but have
Mm.
so little to do with each other. One is Fast and Furious, one is 300. Yeah, I don't know.
Mm. I guess, yeah.
Either, but
But
yeah, I
either way,
think
yeah.
that's huge news. I think we both love James Gunn. I think you even more than me,
Yes.
but I've loved everything that he's done so far from Slither all the way till Peacemaker. Peacemaker, I still think is one of the best things he's done. Period. That was
Mm.
like incredible to just take that character and that show. That show is so fucking
Yeah.
good. If anyone hasn't seen it, you need to absolutely watch it. But yeah, what's your take? What do you think James Gunn is going to do
Uh,
with the DCU?
I am so excited about that. I guess they replaced Jeff Johns, who was the previous guy who was supposed to be the previous Kevin Feige type of dude. And he's a famous comic book writer. He writes a lot of. He's the guy I think who created the long-haired Aquaman, the badass Aquaman. And I think he was the one who officially said that it was his idea to have the Martha scene. And so I'm glad that they. I think what DC did or Warner Brothers did was like, oh, there's a guy like Kevin Feige. I guess we need a guy like that, and we'll get an actual comic book dude. But I don't think he was good at his job, and and I think it just sort of spiraled out of control. And I am so glad that they have someone smart and who can actually have a vision and carry it out in an amazing way. Because I was so amazed by the Suicide Squad. It's probably my best DC movie, like within the DCEU or DCU. Uh,
More than the
Even though
Justice
like,
League.
oh yeah, definitely, because Justice League is like it's like Justice League is more of like a personal favorite just because of everything in it. But as a movie, I think the Suicide Squad is maybe the best within this thing. Maybe the only thing better than that within the DC stuff, I would say, is the Dark Knight.
Yeah, I would say for me it would be Dark Knight. I'm torn. I think the except the last half an hour, the Zack Snyder Justice League, like that is an epic movie where
Oh
like
yeah,
I've rewatched that like 3 times already. Where I like
I watched it 40 times.
yeah, it's there's like certain scenes where like I just watch that scene and stuff. Where I watched the Suicide Squad also twice or three times, I think, and I love it for what it is, and I love James Gunn's like his comedy of like shotgun comedy, like a joke a minute. It doesn't always work, but it really worked in this movie. I feel like, and it was. I think the difference is, I would say the Justice League was a lot of fun and the best blockbuster type of movie where like I can
Yeah.
like you said, I wouldn't even like I can
Justice
suggest
League
that
is something you can.
like Suicide Squad. I can suggest to anybody. Dark Knight, I would suggest to people who love actual like movies
Yeah.
and they don't
Yeah.
care that much about superheroes and all that stuff, all big action.
Yeah.
Justice League, I would suggest to anybody who just loves comic books, like
Yes.
someone who like is super into superheroes and like yeah, like I feel like the Justice League is one of the best comic book movies out there.
Thank you, man. That warms my heart after the tirade that you went on, just bashing Man of Steel and BVS. I'm so happy to hear it.
I think I didn't get to finish, but I said BVS the director's cut. I did actually like. I hated the theatrical cut. I feel like it made no sense. It was just like
they literally edited out the parts that joined the story together. And they're like, oh, like, and the funny thing about that is like, just I know we're going a little haphazard, but when the director's cut came out, I told my brother about it, and he watched it, and I was like, dude, you gotta watch it now. That movie is amazing. Like, I actually even enjoyed the theatrical cut because I think I had like a bias towards it. But then when I watched the director's cut, I was like, okay, you gotta watch this. And he was like, oh no, it just had the boring parts. Like those were only the extra parts. So I it was good for me to see it from the perception of someone who's not into comic books, but just likes Superman and Batman and wants to just watch a comic book movie. And so for him, something like the Justice League would be so much better just because there's so many action set pieces and epic things that are like so much like it's like comic book panels just like on the screen, which is what Watchmen was like, where the characters and the story is sort of just joined, like faintly joined together with like just collection of amazing visual scenes that are for like comic book fans, it's like amazing. Which is why the Suicide Squad for me, just as a movie, like from start to finish with characters in it and a story, and every character has an arc. Like even his comedy isn't something that I love that much, because I think there's a lot of times even in the Guardians movies where it comes off a little forced and a little too predictable. But I think his situational comedy is so amazing, and how it's like perfectly merged together with the story. It's that's the only reason. And like you said, The Dark Knight is just like a more serious, less comic book version of that in terms of like how good a movie it is.
So what do you think the direction will be that James Gunn takes it, just to wrap up the story?
Well, he did mention in the Suicide Squad that Idris Elba put Superman in a coma with a kryptonite bullet. So that's the only mention of Superman since the Justice League. So maybe he starts off there. Maybe, I don't know, man. There's because now we've opened it up with Justice League. We opened it up to so much crazier shit that I don't know how you're gonna just have just a Man of Steel movie. So I'm actually, and the thing with James Gunn so far, what we've seen is that he does movies like amazing movies with an ensemble rather than singular characters. So it'll be cool to see maybe Superman. I think he's just going to be popping in and out of other people's stories. And then I think at some point he might be the central figure of a Justice League movie.
Yeah. James Gunn Justice League would be crazy. It would be such a crazy shift.
Can you imagine that?
I feel like people would hate it just because it would be too much comedy. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
I would be down for it, but like people be like, I don't want a joke a minute when I'm watching the Justice League. They're like, make a character in there funny, but not any, like if you have the entire Justice League just be a bunch of clowns, it's not going to work. What would be cool is, but there's a game coming out called The Suicide Squad Kills the Justice League. Now that would be fucking dope. That he could
Yes,
do.
like he could do Justice League versus the Suicide Squad.
Yeah. I like that in this one it's
And
the Suicide Squad versus the Justice League. That the Justice League has gone evil and they have no one left but
oh,
the Suicide Squad to kill him. Like basically Brainiac has
uh,
come and he's taken over the Justice League. And then it's
mm.
King Shark, Harley Quinn, Captain Boomerang, and Deadshot have to take out the Flash and like Green Lantern, Superman, everybody.
Did you hear? I think Harley Quinn is also recast. I
Really?
think Lady Gaga is going to be playing Harley Quinn now.
No, is it confirmed? No, she's in Joker 2 with Joaquin Phoenix. I don't know if she's confirmed as Harley
Oh,
Quinn.
really?
Yeah.
I think because that's I read like I saw like a small image of it where Margot Robbie is commenting on Lady Gaga playing Harley Quinn, and Margot Robbie was like, I love it because I wanted to create a character that's like Batman, where it's like the thing is mantle is passed to other characters and they can do their own interpretations on it. So
Mm.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean,
What?
Margot Robbie was like Harley Quinn, so
Yeah. I don't know.
it'll be
I
kind of
don't
hard to
think
fill those shoes.
I don't think I would like to Lady Gaga to be like Harley Quinn in multiple movies. But if she's Harley Quinn in the Joker, it'd be interesting. Apparently, Joker 2 is going to
Yeah.
be a musical. That's why she's in it, and she's the co-lead
Oh.
with Joaquin Phoenix.
Oh, wow.
But
I didn't know this.
well, musical. I think it's more about like there's a lot of music in it, which is like performed on stage.
I think it's
more.
going to be like Sweeney Todd
I don't actually
or
don't think.
similar to that.
Maybe I'm not sure. He wasn't like kind of like playing around the like dancing around the word musical, saying that
Right.
it's like it's about music and there's going to be long musical numbers that people are performing, but it might not be like straight up like in the middle of a scene they just everyone's singing. It's more like it's the Joker one was there was a lot of metaphorical stuff and like dream
Yeah.
sequences and things like
Right.
that. So they could easily do things like that. But yeah, I think
Nice.
that's a good wrap up for our DC discussion. And I think
I'm
we're
very
getting close to
excited.
the end of this episode. I guess just in the last 10 minutes,
Quickly,
let us.
sorry. I didn't want to. So sorry. Just to last thing, where I think James Gunn could have a serious dark tone to the Justice League because he did direct Super, which had huge tonal shifts. So and he did write Dawn of the Dead. So I just wanted to throw that in, where I think he could have a serious edge to his Justice League.
All right. Well, that
Right?
destroyed my
That's
natural
fine.
trying to end this, but okay. I was saying last 10 minutes, let's go for it. Just two last quick stories where I don't know if you have much to say about it, but Brandon Fraser apparently came out and said he's down for Mummy 4. Are you down for Mummy 4?
I didn't know there were three. I know there was one, and then there was two with The Rock in it.
The Returns,
And right?
And then there
Was there a third one?
yeah, the one with
Was
Jet Li.
the Tom Cruise?
No, that's not. He's talking about the original trilogy, where in the third one
Yeah.
it's like the Dragon Emperor or something like that. It's Jet Li.
Oh, I have no idea. I had no idea there was a third one.
You don't remember Jet
Also,
Li?
isn't no? I know who Jet Li is, but I don't remember that there was a Mummy 3. I thought there was just two, and then it
To
was
be-
rebooted,
To
and
be
then it
fair,
was
it was the
canceled.
worst one out of the three. So
Obviously.
I mean,
But
you
yeah,
never know.
no, come on. Mummy 3 would be pretty. But starring Jet Li I can 100% guarantee would be awful. Especially if it came out like 15, 20 years ago. If it came out today, it could be kind of fun. But but Brendan Fraser, man, have you seen him lately? What he looks like? It would be hard for him to do mummy stuff because he's like an archaeologist, I think, in Mummy, so he's running around a lot. Would he be able to do that now?
It'd be
Given
interesting
his,
with what they would do with it. He had like a pretty bad time. Apparently, he spoke out about being sexually abused in Hollywood and got blacklisted for like 10 years. So he's been slowly on a return in the last 2 or 3 years.
He's awesome in Doom Patrol.
Yeah, that was like one of his returning roles, and he's been great in it. And basically, the entire internet has been behind him. Every time you see him, he's just so lovable and awkward that like you
Yes.
just have to love the guy. And every time
agree.
people tell him that like the internet loves you, he's always just like, "Oh shucks," You know, like you always get
Oh,
so like shy and everything. You're just like, ah, Brandon, you did so many like,
Brandon.
dude, I love the first Mummy. Like I remember that's
Mm,
one of those
I
movies
agree.
I remember going to the theater as a kid, going to that and coming out being like, holy shit, that was a fucking
Yeah,
movie. Right. And like I
I agree.
watched I followed him to Monkey Bone, even Dudley Do Right. Fucking he did
George of the Jungle,
George of the Jungle. I fucking loved as a kid. There's Encino
Journey to
Man,
the
bro.
Center of the Earth.
Dude, even that was such a like that movie was not supposed to be good, but just because he's in it, and honestly, it was one of the first 3D movies, and they did like this whole stage thing where like it
Mm,
looked like they're just performing on a stage. But yeah,
yeah,
overall, dude, he was like he was killing it back then, and it's so sad to see that it ended the way it ended, and like it's amazing to see that he's coming back now. And I honestly
that's awesome.
think give him whatever he needs to get back
Yes,
to somewhere where it's like you see Brandon Fraser on a poster and you're excited about it because he was going
I
to
agree.
like there was Batwoman was supposed to come out, and now with HBO being bought, they scrapped it, and no one's ever going to see this movie that's almost finished, and he was going to be Firefly in it, and it was part of
Ooh.
the brand reconnaissance of Brandon Fraser coming back, and like yeah, it's so sad. Like yeah, he was talking about it like recently, making like a joke, but you could tell that he was just like, "Fuck, no one's ever going to see what the fuck I did in that movie." No one's
That's
going to
sad.
ever. Michael Keaton was supposed to be Batman in that movie. No one's ever going to
Oh
see
my
Michael
God.
Keaton as Batman in a Batgirl movie. That's first absurd. That's one of those things where like it literally. It's also one of those things. The way they wrote it off, people are saying there's like a good chance like we'll never see this movie because legally they just can't anymore. So it's like what the fuck.
Maybe sometime in the
That's
future.
hopefully somebody needs to leak that shit or something. I don't know. Like it
Someone
would.
will buy it at some point.
I think the problem is they like as a write off they get like save on taxes
Mm,
and they save like an absurd amount. Like if it works like the producers were like a failure, like you have it insured and you get the money back and stuff like that.
right.
There is all sorts of weird things and legal loopholes that they like to use. And if it's entangled in that, it'll be pretty difficult to get it out. There were some other examples of movies where like, yeah, we still have never seen those just because they were a write off. But yeah, I think it'd be cool for Mummy 4. There's another thing coming back. Well, talks about it coming back besides the Mummy. Frankie Muniz and Bryan Cranston are talking about
Oh,
rebooting Malcolm in the Middle. What do you think
how?
about
How
that?
would they do that?
I actually
So
don't know.
I never was like a huge fan of Malcolm in the Middle. I always saw it on TV. Like it would be playing on TV and I was always confused by because Malcolm himself, I still don't know what the exact story is. I always thought that Malcolm is supposed to be like a kid that they've adopted, and that's the funny and that's the joke of it, and I never understood what was going on, and I would just always turn it off, and
Why
I
did you
would like
think he
watch
was
Homer
adopted?
because he's the only one that doesn't look like he's part of the family, because the
But
two
that is the
brothers, the older
story.
one and the
That
younger
he's
one.
the smart kid in a dumb family.
Right. Okay. Okay. Now I get it. I guess
I
that's what
think
makes
I
sense.
think that's the point.
I just never knew. And Bryan Cranston to me was just like, I always just knew him from Seinfeld. And then when it was like, dude, Bryan Cranston, he's playing like this guy in Breaking Bad. And oh wait, once again, my camera's frozen. Okay, it's back. Bryan Cranston's playing this dude in Breaking Bad. You remember that dude from Malcolm in the Middle? And I was like, wait, what? And I was like, wait, isn't he the dentist in Seinfeld? And they're like, yeah, dude, it's the same guy. I was like, okay, I guess, whatever, you know. But now obviously it's like a huge deal because Bryan Cranston is maybe the most amazing actor ever.
Yeah, that's what I
And
think
yeah.
that's the interesting thing about it. Where I don't know what Frankie Muniz did in the meantime. Where I thought
Mm.
I liked those spy movies as a kid too. Where
Agent Cody Banks or something like that.
yeah, I was like he was all right in that. It was okay. I don't know
Whatever.
why he just disappeared after that. But Bryan Cranston to go back to that now be
Yeah.
kind of fun. I'm like,
But
just like
he
he's
was
done
such
so much
like a
serious
plain
shit.
character though.
Can we get?
I said he was like such a plain character though in the
But he was
Malcolm in the Middle.
so outlandish. I don't know if you ever seen some of the shit
okay.
he did on that
No,
show.
no.
Like it was pretty
No, no.
crazy. So just to see like now serious Bryan Cranston come back, yeah, I don't know. But yeah, it's interesting. It's just a random thing, like a Malcolm in the Middle out of all things. It seems like Frankie Muniz and Bryan Cranston are the two people that really want this, and nobody else asked for this. But hey,
That's so weird. Yeah.
if it happens, it'd be just a fun experiment. It was like Roseanne coming back. Does it work? It didn't. But you never know. Maybe it does.
But Bryan Cranston's amazing, so maybe it'll work.
Right? Yeah, I feel like he could make anything work. But yeah, I think that this is a good place to end the show right at the 1 hour mark. That's our first episode of Root Shabz React to the News, working title WIP.
News pod.
New Pop Pod.
Pop pod.
Inside the pod. No, enter the pod. Okay, anyways.
Enter the pod. Okay.
Yeah, we will try to do this more often as things happen, as we were mentioning. We'll probably start doing a gaming news show as well, where I take Shabz on a journey into the gaming world as he's
Shabz
a little
the
bit new
noob.
at it. No, maybe like teaching the noob or something like that. We'll work on the title. We don't do that now. But yeah, look out for the next episode, and we'll see you next time. In the meantime, Shabz, why don't you take us out?
Thanks for tuning in, guys. I hope we were good at this, and we're really looking forward. This was super fun for us to do, to just like get away from, not get away, but just do something different from the shows and stuff, and just to talk about stuff that we just kind of want to talk about stuff we really enjoy, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let us know if you have any feedback. Let us know if there's topics you want to you want us to talk about, because it's tough for us to find topics as well. So if you guys maybe email us, leave comments about stuff you guys want to talk about, maybe we'll compile a list of topics and do pods on that as well. And other than that, catch us on YouTube. We're starting to put up video pods on Spotify as well, so you can check that out there. We have clips and highlights on YouTube going up soon. Check us out, audio stuff on Amazon Music, Apple Pod, iTunes. Give us a 5-star rating if you can, and keep tuning in, guys. Happy endings.
And TikTok, I was going to say.
Oh, TikTok. Is that? I thought you were saying timeout.
I realized when I did it, I was like, oh shit, that's a timeout.
This is why you need to learn about sports. You're gonna teach me gaming, and I'll teach you about sports.
See, that's the problem. I didn't know. I don't play sports.
But I thought you were saying, dude, timeout. You're doing too much. I was like, okay, I'll wrap it up. But yeah, thanks for tuning in, guys.
Check us out on TikTok, and peace. Till next time.
Peace out, guys. Hope catch you on the next one.